Thanks for tuning in to the Old Dirty Basement. Today's episode is part 3 of 3 on Jeffrey Dahmer. So if you listened to the first two, and I hope you did, you know we're up to the point where Jeff's in prison and he's about to move into his apartment in Milwaukee. And this is where all the terror begins. I shouldn't say all the terror. There was some terror that happened before, but this is the bulk of it. So I want you to be prepared. And this is a warning. This is graphic content. I'm sure if you're listening to a Jeffrey Dahmer podcast, you're prepared for that. But just be forewarned, there's pretty disturbing content within. But at any rate, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you may be, please like and follow our show and leave us a rating where available, and also a written review. If you can't do that, just let a friend know that you're enjoying it, and maybe they'll check it out. But we present to you part 3 of Jeffrey Dahmer.
This is the Old Dirty Basement, home to debauchery, madness, murder, and mayhem, a terror-filled train ride deep into the depths of the devil's den.
With a little bit of humor.
And history.
I'm your announcer, Shallow Throat. Your hosts are Dave and Matt. I love you, Kate Beckinsale. Call me sometime.
Hey, this is Matt.
And this is Dave.
And welcome to the Old Dirty Basement.
Where every week we cover a true crime.
Or a compelling story.
So sit back.
Relax.
And comprehend.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, all you cellar dwellers, to part Trey of the Jeffrey Dahmer story. We're trying to give you a whole outlook to the life of.
Yeah, it's a lot to cover, and we thought it'd be best to break it up. And Zap did the second part, Matt did the first part, and I have the honors of this third part. That's going to be quite a bit of info.
God bless you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Thanks for taking
God bless you,
the
Dave.
third part.
You have a Herculean task ahead of you.
Yeah, so basically, you two guys had the 5 murders leading us into the apartment here where the bulk of the action happened.
Yeah, it was murder number 1, where he went through the youth up until the first murder.
So that was when he was 18.
Hit the second through, fourth?
Second through fifth.
Fifth.
Yeah. And
then Dave got the other math, 13?
Yeah, so Matt, absolutely, well said. You got to see, or you got to speak to, Dahmer's first entree into the world and the temptation and the taste and tantalization of murder. Then I got to go through 2 through 5 where we got to see his murder puberty, right? So he definitely changed it up. He's working things out. His mind's changing.
And here he's getting into his craft, I would take it.
Absolutely.
He's accepting who he is and taking pride in his work.
100%.
And getting better at what he does.
And so many times where this guy could have been caught. I mean, he was caught for some things, like Zap mentioned in the last one. He did prison time. That's the last we left him. He was put in prison for molestation, right?
Touching the boys.
Yeah. He had
no touching.
Yep. He had drugged the young boy. That was, how do you say that last name? It was, I have it here. Synthasimphone?
Yeah. I think, yeah.
So he was like 13, I think, at the time, right? And then
be clear, for anyone who listened, anybody, I said anybody. Mm-hmm. For anybody listening, this is not a mispronunciation of a last name. It's not in any way, shape, or form a matter of disrespect. Mm-hmm. It's all, remember that these are are now deceased people.
Yes.
With mothers, who miss them dearly. With families, with it's no disrespect at all.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just a couple of guys talking, having a good time talking about it. But in reality, we do all recognize, the importance of the loss of life and, how hard that is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Thanks for the public service announcement.
Just a disclaimer that we're not all 3 heartless pieces of shit here.
No, not at all. But the young boy that he's a brother of one of the victims that's coming up. Now, this boy did get away, but that's the one corrected. Is that the one that Jeff did time for?
Touching a boy.
Yeah. Was
correct.
The young, the brother, yeah, that's odd how that happened. It was, Yeah.
Yeah, so he was last time we left him, he was in prison, and he was still on work release though. So he was working at the chocolate factory, and he actually had
What a great employer, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, this might be, no, not even might be, it is. It's the longest job Dahmer ever had, was stirring chocolate. Like,
Yeah.
that's all. Yeah.
I don't think it was a great job for him though, because you're just sitting there. You don't really have much to think about. You know
Alone
what you're
with
doing.
your
Yeah,
thoughts.
alone with your thoughts. You got some chocolate. Smells nice in there. Brings his lunch.
well,
Some heads in the locker.
Chocolate makes people happy.
yeah. I mean, my thought was
The
I mean,
candy man can.
either he was like a great employee, or they were just really hard up for help. That they were like, you know what I mean? That he kept his job through all this. But I guess if they were hard up for employees,
Well, he knew he needed money. He needed to have an apartment. He needed a place
But no,
to
he was
go.
in prison during that when he was working there. He was on work release. So, like, I guess they can't fire you. I don't know. Maybe they could. I don't know the laws on that, but
Well, not on work release. You really don't have much to do. It's either go to your job or stay
Mm-hmm.
locked up 24/7.
and not to mention, like I was saying, he had, according to him, he kept a head of one of the victims in the locker there at his work, and he was in prison. I'm surprised, like somebody that's on work release, you wouldn't check his locker, for contraband.
I'm sure they
and stuff
did,
like that.
but it was just one of those things where he was getting by. Yeah, they would have to, or have somebody that would be part of your
You make
piss
a
test.
That's a really, really interesting thing. So let's think about this. So we
Mhm.
got Jeffrey Dahmer.
Chocolate.
He's
Locker.
in prison,
Mhm.
but he comes to work every day. No, there's no. So no, there would be no causation for anyone to check his locker, because it's not as though he had ever missed work. He's either sleeping in prison or
Mhm.
he's sleeping at home. So in this case, so timeline backwards, he started out sleeping at home.
Mhm.
Every day he shows up for 8 hours, does his work, stirring the chocolate, goes home. In this case, all they know is that he shows up for work. The only thing that the employer cares about is that he's showing up for work.
Yeah, that's
Right.
what get marked. They mark that off. Like, he's here, check. He's
That's
doing
right.
his job. If he wasn't there, then they would start checking things.
Right.
Where is he at? What's he doing? Let's get some blood work or piss test, whatever.
Thus, it makes sense that no one ever found the head in the box in his locker, because dude showed up to work every day.
Yeah, my thought was just this could have all ended there. If they would have just found it, but it didn't.
Are you kidding me? There are so many coulda, woulda, shouldas,
Coulda, woulda.
and I'll stress
From
shoulda.
the
Shoulda,
beginning.
yes.
So many shouldas, but meh.
So he gets out of prison, then he moves back with his grandmother, and he's living there for a brief period of time.
Grandma's a big part in this
Yeah.
whole story, too.
She's been there like his
Mhm.
whole life. His parole officer, Donna Chester was her name, just waved off the home visits and decided, not going to do it.
Because he was living with the grandmother, and they were
Well, I
probably
mean-
like another safe place for him.
I don't know. I mean, just
Job,
seems-
grandmother. They didn't think he was up to anything.
Seems a little odd, but
Seems a little lazy, which isn't that odd.
right, true. So
People.
on May 14th, 1990, so from his grandmother's house, he moves to the notorious address of 924 North 25th Street, apartment 213 in Milwaukee. And that's where all the murders that I'm going to go into here, this is where everything pretty much takes place. Now he has, for the first time, and I shouldn't say in the first time of his life, but he's by himself and he can do whatever he wants. He doesn't have the grandmother to worry about waking up or the parents coming home. He's got his own place. And this is where all the action, unfortunately, starts taking place.
And let's not forget, as we just were talking about earlier, he's gone through call it the childhood and pubescence of his murdering career, right? So it's one thing to have grown as a human, but now he's actually grown as a mass murderer here.
Right.
He has, his big boy pants are finally on.
Yeah.
So he's ready he was just open to the world.
May 14th, like I said, he moves in there. And not soon after that, so it's May 20th, Raymond Smith, the gentleman's name, also known by Ricky Beeks. And he was around 32 years old, and he was a male prostitute. Dahmer met up with him and offered him $50 for sex.
So it wasn't pictures this time. He just asked for straight up sex.
Straight up sex, I guess, because the guy was maybe a prostitute, and he figured I'll just offer him the 50 for sex. And like they've said, Dahmer was a pretty decent looking guy, so he didn't seem to have too much trouble, usually like luring guys back. So this guy agreed, and he got him back to his apartment. And his normal MO with sleeping pills, and he puts it in his drink, and then he strangles him. And this time, though, he decided like the next day, I think it was, to purchase a Polaroid camera and take pictures. And because with the bodies decaying and all that, he wasn't able to
have as
enjoy
much
them.
time with them.
Because it happened so fast.
I wonder also, having, roofied himself not too much in the past when he was at the Ambassador Hotel.
With Toomey, yeah.
Yeah, so he's thinking, shit, just in case I accidentally roofie myself, maybe I'd like a little piece of memorabilia, a little forget-me-not. Just so I can look back and say, look what I did. I'm so proud. So it's
like he has a whole album.
Yeah, and it's ultimately, I'm sure, as Dave will do the deep dive, the dirty deep dive, and we will certainly all find out. It's interesting to hear $50 for prostitute, whereas we've already heard $50 for photos. I mean, look, like you had said, Dave, Jeffrey Dahmer is a talker. He's a charismatic guy. He has comeliness to him. People are in some way, shape, or form, for whatever reason, these guys were attracted to this guy. I got to believe that he was just playing to the masses, playing to the audience. So if somebody comes up to him, it's going to be a handful of things. Oh, well, I'm a model. I'm a this, that, and the other thing. I'm trying to make it in acting or modeling. Jeffrey in his mind says, all right, well, tell you what, I'll give you $50 and let me get some naked pics of you. Cool. Or again, hanging out at the bar, dude comes up to him. Yeah, I'm into sex with dudes. Cool. I'll give you $50 and
I got a Polaroid at home.
There we go.
And that's nice.
We can do anything, any kind of depravity you want, man. So
Yeah, so with this guy, he, like I said, took pictures of the guy, put him in sexual poses and stuff, and got pictures that he wanted. And then he went on and dismembered the body. And he would usually do that in his bathtub area. And I guess from the past podcast, we went over his youth when dealing with animals and cutting them up. And his dad showed him how to dissolve in acid and do all that stuff with the bones. He already learned how to put that stuff to good use with the human bodies that he was getting rid of as an adult.
That was basically, he started doing the garbage bags, right? Or is that not yet?
The garbage bags?
Didn't he put like parts after he cut them up, put them in the garbage?
He was doing that back at Grandma's house.
Yeah, he was doing that. Now he was more dissolving them and then,
and
then actually flushing stuff down the toilet. And maybe he put stuff out with trash, but I know he would get it into like almost like a goo-like consistency and whatever, and he would slowly just flush it down.
They must have had like an incredible flush back then, because sometimes I'm talking like a long, like some Strombolis and a couple pies. Like that's hard to get down there.
This is not one of those. This is not one of those. I got to harken back to what we've been talking about here. This guy's building a life's worth of a toolbox in his own toolbox.
Just saying, before he attempted this, he mastered it a little bit.
Everything
he
is
experimented.
Everything is lessons learned at this point.
And he was like, I can get this down pretty well.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So for this guy, he kept the skull again and he spray painted it. I guess like his thought maybe was, if I paint it like a different color, maybe people think it's a prop or not real. And
did he display it, or was it something that he kept away?
I think those things he would put away. He did have a plan that we'll get into later. That he was gonna have like a display thing, but we'll get into that later. So
was it more for? And I'm sorry if I missed the whole answer to this. Was it more for making it more presentable? That is to say, more fashionable, more appealing, or was it more for preservation?
I think it was more for actually,
because we've talked about how bones the skulls get brittle, and he fucked it up a couple of times here. Yeah,
from what I remember reading on it, it was more to do with in case anybody would come across it.
Gotcha.
And I don't know that people were going into his apartment or that, but
or saying it's something that he bought, or it's fake to give it like
somebody
a fake
coming, it's a
appeal.
Halloween decoration, or you know what I mean, like.
Gotcha.
Just kind of like
just in case Grandma comes over and says, "Hey, I want to check out the place."
Right.
Or wasn't a sort of kink something? Maybe also like maybe he thought if he painted, he would make it more desirable for himself, or like some sort of art.
Right.
Yeah, you don't know what was going through his mind.
So he kept that skull with Sears from the last episode. He kept that, and I think Sears was the one that he had in the locker.
As much as I've read, that is my understanding.
Yeah,
that's the one that he had in the locker
at work.
Yep. So Sears was at work on lockdown.
Yep.
All right.
So move on to June 14th, 1990. So, we're less than a month out from this murder. And he meets Edward Smith. And he was around 27 years old. And he was an acquaintance. Like Dahmer knew him. I guess they knew of each other. And there's a couple of these guys that we'll talk about that they had met before. And I think people in the community were aware of Dahmer and kind of knew
Again,
Hey,
how
that
this
blonde guy,
how
you know.
this guy got away for so long. Like
Right.
you said, because especially in the gay club scene at that time, they had to have all known who this white dude was.
I still can't wrap my head around
Doesn't
that.
make
But
sense.
I know that in any city you're going to have a ton of bars, right? And then even just that scene alone, if you would go just to call it all of the bars, you're going to end up you're going to duplicate, obviously, and people are going to say, hey, here's that regular guy. If there's 15 bars or 20 bars or even 50 bars locally, he just goes around to all these bars. Now narrow that down to just the gay bars. It cannot be that many. It just can't.
But he was in a predominantly black area at this time. It was
where he was living, but I don't know that the clubs necessarily were. Like where he lived was a black area, predominantly black, the neighborhood. But
he was an odd-looking, blonde-haired, blue-eyed dude with some weird glasses.
I think
I
think what Dave's trying to say is, despite where he lived, that doesn't necessarily allude to where he was drinking at.
Where he was hanging out, these clubs and stuff.
So he would take cabs to gay bars.
See, I
in
thought they
other
were
parts of
relatively
town.
close. I thought they were a lot of walking.
I don't
distance.
know like proximity where they were at, but I don't think the area. I don't know that those gay bars were in like a certain area that was, that where he lived was, because the rent was lower and everything like that. He just happened to end up there
In a furnished apartment, by the way.
and it was a furnished apartment. And he actually had people in the I don't know if you guys watched. There was actually another Dahmer type documentary that came out.
The one
with
about
actual,
the lady that was interviewing him.
Well, these were actually interviews with Dahmer and with people that were.
Do tell.
Yeah, so this was on Netflix. It came out, I think, last Friday, maybe.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's out there.
Yeah, it's basically like conversation tapes with a killer or one of them deals on Netflix. And there was a gentleman that lived in a black gentleman that lived in the apartment there and knew Dahmer and was fond of him. And he was trying to hook him up with like a girl. He was like, "Hey Jeff," he came over, knocked on the door. He's like, "Jeff, we're playing cards," because this girl kind of thought Jeff was cute or whatever, didn't know what his deal was, and invited him over. And he was like, "No, I'm not interested." Basically kind of shut it right down. But the people there, like, I think they thought he was a little weird, but nobody really thought, obviously.
Well, his neighbor,
What?
his direct next door neighbor.
Well, she was not his.
Don't let that Netflix fake news
So that wasn't that
mess
was
with you.
That was not-
okay.
That chick lived in a different building,
Yeah.
a completely different building.
Mm-hmm.
So that was more like aesthetics for the picture. That wasn't true
No, she lived like across the street. Now
Okay.
it was her daughter that we'll get into later with
about the kid. Okay,
the 14-year-old.
We'll hold off on that.
Yeah. So this guy here, Edward Smith, like I said, he gets lured back to his apartment and strangled and murdered and drugged. His same MO. This time, he's all about trying to learn, like, figure out a way to preserve these bones and everything. Like, he's trying to figure out still how to do it in a way that the skeleton will stay intact. So he tries to freeze the bones of the skeleton of this guy to remove the moisture and dry out the skull. He tried to put that in the oven to dry it out. But you put it in the oven and it exploded. The skull exploded, so he ended up losing it. And
Wait, time out. Did he have? Was the meat still attached to the
I think
skeleton?
I think
to the skull. Jesus, how can I not say
To the skull.
No,
skull.
I think by this time it was just down to the skull, the actual skull, not with flesh on it and all that. I think he would do away with all that and then
Gotcha.
just
So he had it in the
left
oven
over.
and he put it like on broil.
I don't know what he had,
Don't.
what setting on it. Yeah,
He had it on a
yeah.
350 for 25
He
minutes.
confused his low bake with his high bake.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
No, I saw something funny the other day. Like Zap said, we're not making
Yeah,
fun of the
no.
whole situation, but I did find it a little amusing. Somebody put on it was like a meme or something, and it said like, "Does anybody know of an air fryer that can handle a family of 8?" And somebody said, "Calm down, Dahmer."
Nice.
It just kind of made me laugh. I don't know, but
I saw
funny.
I saw a meme the other day, and it's a picture of the dude that's in the most recent Netflix 10-part series.
Mhm.
Not the one that clearly I just missed. It came out a couple of days ago, but I'm talking about the 10-part,
The actor.
the
Right.
big chompy. So this is a picture that dude sitting at a burger joint,
Mhm.
and it just at the bottom reads, "This doesn't taste like Five Guys."
I saw. Yeah, I did see that one too.
I
Yeah,
didn't see that one either.
there's
That's
been a
good,
lot
though.
of that stuff like out. I mean, this thing is like the hugest story right now. It's just
because
all
it's
over
something so awful, so tragic, so unbelievable that your mind has to wrap jokes. And that's been, people have been doing that for
Well, that's what
centuries.
Talked
It's a-
about with the game.
yeah, it's a coping mechanism.
Yes.
Right, for sure. I mean, it's just how people do it.
That's what we do.
So in between this murder of Edward Smith and the next victim, who would be Ernest Miller, there was actually an interaction that Dahmer had that they didn't present this in the show or show it in the show. So it was around July 6th, and there was a 15-year-old named Luis Pena, I guess is how you say it. It's
Pena.
P-I-N-E-T, Pena. Pena, maybe. This 219 club where Dahmer would hang out at. This kid, sorry, go ahead.
No, I can't. I'm trying to figure this out in my head, but I was just going to say, like, it's all Greek to me.
Oh, okay.
But I get it. But it's
No,
Spanish.
he wasn't a Greek guy.
I get
Spanish.
it, but yet the old one invokes the old phrase. It's all Greek to me.
Yeah.
Zap, you're an idiot.
No, that's good. I mean, I get you. So yeah, this kid, he was 15, and he worked at this 219 club, which was
The 219.
Yeah, that's where Dahmer one of the clubs that he would, kind of frequent. So this 15-year-old is doing maintenance work there, which I thought was a little weird.
I think that's a prostitute type, like maintenance work.
Well, I don't know. The kid was working there. He was on the payroll, I guess is kind of what I read on it. So Dahmer offered him some money for sex, for modeling.
For the Polaroids.
For pictures.
Yeah, that was where I had the big Polaroid.
And he did tell him for sex, too. So they, he was like good with it, and they went back to Dahmer's place, and they had sex, and he stayed all night, and until the next early a.m., and wakes up, and Dahmer actually let him go. But they had an agreement that, hey, let's meet up again tonight.
We come again.
Yeah, I want you to come back. But it was shocking that he let this kid go, basically. He's 15.
Dahmer,
That's so crazy.
Yeah, he couldn't be in like the killing, like you're not in that killing stage all the time, are you? Like there has to be times where you're just tired.
Love is love, man.
Yeah, like
sometimes he just wanted to be touched back.
Right.
He had a night of passion, and he was like, instead of some killing, he was going to take a nice
let him
sleep.
roll.
Yeah,
wake up in the morning. So I gotta.
But there's more to this then too.
I gotta wonder. At what point, maybe it was. I guess which came first, not making enough money, or wanting to murder. That is to say, if this guy offers every dude he comes across $50,
Mm-hmm.
now look, this guy's just stirring chocolate at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if every dude he comes across, look, I'll give you $50, whatever, be it for photos, be it for sex, whatever.
but that's why he killed him.
With the amount, with the amount, again, which came first?
They ain't getting the money.
With the amount of drinking that this guy did, so. As we all know at this point, this guy was for damn sure an alcoholic.
Case of bud
for
a
real.
day.
So
maybe.
for how much this guy drank while he was out, because drinking at his home is a hell of a lot cheaper than it is drinking out. And this guy was out at the club all the time.
Buying people drinks.
Also that.
Yeah.
So again, which came first? Is it the intent to murder people, or shit, I got to kill this guy because I don't have $50 to give him.
Yeah, I think the murder.
Well, then he'd take the wallet and stuff. He'd probably take their money
and watch
after he watch whatever he needed.
So with this kid, and he offered this kid $200 according to what they had there.
Dang.
So now whether or not the kid collected,
Pack your bags.
Yeah.
200.
Yeah. So I don't know if the kid collected that first night or what.
That's a daily.
Well, he had to collect to
double.
come back.
Yeah. I mean,
I wouldn't have.
Doesn't
Yeah.
say, but he agreed.
Unless you said I got 100 for you now, 100 for you later.
So he did agree to come back, and he did come back that night. So, they were kind of messing around, I guess, and he was laying face down on the bed.
Oh,
and
no.
Dahmer came in with a rubber mallet, smashed him over the head. But the kid, it kind of dazed him, I guess, but they got into a fight. And this kid was, overpowering Dahmer. They were kind of, fighting back and forth. And they kind of fought to a draw. This is where it gets weird.
This is when Dahmer's like, I'm done.
They just kind of agreed to be like, all right, I give up. All right, I give up.
Go home.
No, the kid kind of hung out there then. He was out. He apologized to him. Dahmer was like,
He's
hey,
like, I'm sorry for hitting
whatever.
you over the head with the mallet trying to kill you.
Yeah,
But since you're living now,
It's okay, man, and I'm sorry for fighting back.
do you mind if I get some Polaroids real quick?
Well, he was
before you
out
leave?
he was out of sleeping pills, so I guess he was like.
He was trying to.
But I can't believe the kid stayed there all night till the next day, and then Dahmer walked into the bus stop and was like, hey, don't this is between you and me, basically. And the kid agreed, but I guess he.
He was out of the sleeping pills, so it completely threw Dahmer off. He didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
And
the
just-
kid was beating his ass, I guess, getting the best of him, and he was like, I guess they're gonna fight to a draw. So he ended up walking him to the bus stop. Hey, don't say anything, whatever. Well, he did go to the police, but they didn't believe him. So and nothing came of it. They didn't investigate or anything else like that.
Well, that was also gays in a crime-infested area. The cops wanted nothing to do with it. They said, whatever happens,
Police
I don't really
yourselves.
give a shit.
Police yourselves.
Yes.
We don't want anything to do with that shit.
Whatever you got going on, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that went down, and he was pretty quiet then till, that's July. What we say on that? July 6th. And then nothing till September 3rd, 1990. And that's when he comes across.
So you're saying 4 months later or like a year later? When was it?
It's 1990, so you're figuring, what is that? Like 3 months, 3 months.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean?
We were just going into high school.
Yeah.
We had just started high school.
I just got off the bus.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. And you think about a kid being 15, that's about the age, you know what I mean? Could you imagine being like ninth grade?
I said, thank you, Dave. I said that to put that into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy was like,
that's some scary shit, man.
Yeah.
100 is 100, though.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be doing that stuff, though. But I do know some kids probably at 15 could kick some ass like that.
Dahmer's like, you're going to like,
but
because
Dahmer
you're
was a
watching
big
like
dude.
wrestling and stuff.
He was a pretty decent sized guy, though, from what I think.
He was
like
skinny,
6
though,
foot.
wasn't
He was like 6 foot. Like, I mean,
Well, as we recall from the last 2 episodes, the kid was number one, Dahmer. The kid Dahmer. I'm saying not only was he in the military, but for a very long time he was into physical fitness,
bodybuilding and
so
stuff.
Yeah, I got him some weights. He was
Let's
strong.
not forget that that old Nautilus weight set, whatever he had, the York barbells, that he ended up with his first kill.
Yeah. So this Ernest Miller, he's the next victim, like I said, and they meet out in front of a bookstore, and once again he's back to the old offering $50, to come back to his.
They said they made out in front of a bookstore.
No, they just met up.
Oh,
met up. I don't know if they were making out, in public or anything like that.
Yeah,
But they met up, and he smooth talked him. Hey, come back to my place. I'll give you $50. And he was like, he agreed to him. So he had gotten him back to the apartment. But once again,
anything like the money back then, like you just said, hey man, what's going on? Nah, I can come back to your house. I got $50 in a Polaroid. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm down.
So
Look, $50. I'll tell you what, man. In 1990, if I had $50, okay. Like, I'm happy. I'm really happy if I had $50 in 1990.
Oh, yeah, it goes far.
Yeah.
Back then, for sure. But
I'm not saying I'm doing gay man sex for it, or I'm doing gay Polaroids for it, but I'm happy to have $50.
But you're saying if somebody was leaning that way and the guy's like $50, yeah, because you're not thinking the guy's going to murder you, slip you a Mickey, and it's night.
if you're, what are you saying? If you're straight, just to get the pictures?
No.
Straight or gay. I think it's straight or gay. I think what Matt's saying is that, look, at no point if somebody offers you $50 for pictures, let's say, no one
in their right mind.
No one ever assumes, oh shit, yeah, this guy could probably kill me, but fuck it, man, I could really use that money.
$50 is 50.
I was saying, like, hanging out in high school, like when we met, like after football practice, I was like, hey man, I'm doing some Polaroids later at my house.
Yeah.
I got 25 in it, maybe 50 if you want to hang out.
Are you kidding me? After football, we were out. We were digging through. Man, I remember digging through your car looking for quarters just so we could go to the Wendy's.
Hot now.
To order hot now.
Yeah, 29-cent burgers.
To get the junior
Delicious.
bacon cheese for 99 cents at the Wendy's, or the hot now.
Yeah, hot now was real cheap.
But
you could eat for like $1.
Going back, long story short.
Not too late.
No, I'm just saying, long story short, you wouldn't. You growing up at that time, you said 1990, starting high school, 15-year-old. I've never heard anything like that. So apparently, in this area, was not a strange thing for the gay community to be offering people money.
Not even just the gay community. I mean, probably just in general, if it's an area where people are hard up for money.
Is this so? I've been thinking about this because we've been talking about this now this is our 3rd episode on this. This is something to which us 3 white guys have ever been exposed, and that is just simply the concept of teenage prostitutes. 1, teenage male prostitutes. 2, teenage male prostitutes who will do anything with anybody. 3, for $50. So this is something to which I have never been exposed. Obviously, like this is just mind blowing that such a seedy underground exists at apparently all ages.
Yeah, I don't know what Milwaukee, what it was like as far as like, it's a big city, so
it is a big city.
I'm sure there's distressed areas where maybe that was commonplace, but yeah, this guy, he's like $50. I'll head back with him. This time Dahmer only has like 2 sleeping pills, so he's like, shit, it's not gonna be enough, and he actually
is that from trial and error? Did he know that? Like, I'm sure, like
well,
you said,
he
it was
knew.
his craft.
I think it was normally like at least 6 or 7
Wow.
that he would get to really get him
God
knocked out.
damn.
So I think
6 or 7.
I'm pretty sure that was the number that I heard, but the two was not going to do it. And
If I understand correctly, I thought, and no, by all means, look, this is your segment. Do it.
Mhm.
Own it. My understanding was he would administer that significant number of sleeping pills, knowing that just in case anything went the wrong way, his
Right.
victims would die. He ended up doing whatever he did to them in the meantime between the administering of those pills and their would-be ultimate death. He would end up killing them just to, I don't want to say put them out of their misery, but basically knowing that, look, they're going to get there anyway. I'm just going to help it along.
Right. He didn't want to. I know that he preferred not to do what he had to do with this guy, where he had to cut his throat instead of doing the strangulation move.
You don't want all the blood.
Well, he preferred he
He's
didn't.
got a security deposit, man.
Yeah.
That was a furnished apartment.
Which are hard to come by.
He
like
doesn't
you
want to
said.
go shitting up the joint with blood all over the place.
Well, his thing was, like, as we'll find out as we go through these, is that he had to kill them out of necessity, but his ideal thing was them to turn into a zombie or them to be, but it could never work out that
he
way.
was trying.
But he didn't enjoy the
ways around
murdering part. He just wanted them not to leave. And he could do without. I don't think he necessarily enjoyed the murdering part, although he did enjoy the dismembering and that stuff. We know about that stuff.
For sure.
So the murdering was kind of a touchy subject with him. He didn't really.
That's
but he
according
wanted
to
them to be.
Now, this is all according to what he said. So,
Yeah.
I mean, could have just been putting it on to kind of try to make himself sound.
think
Let's
he was
not forget,
telling
we got Dahmer, the old prankster here.
Yeah.
For all we know, he could have just been fucking with us the whole
The
time.
whole time. Yeah. I mean, you just don't know.
Just making it up.
So this guy, he did cut his throat instead of strangling him. And then, so this is something that was weird. They said when he had the guy's head cut off and he was like talking to it and like kissing on it and stuff like that, which is kind of odd. Like the severed head. Bizarre.
Just a little bizarre.
Yeah, to each his own.
So he took a flesh from the biceps and the heart and the legs and stored it in a freezer. And
Were
then-
these ones he was getting ready to like start cooking up?
Yeah, these are the ones that
Like
like
a little
later on.
saute.
Yeah, he was almost stocking it up, like
Mhm.
like he went in. From what they said, like from what he said, it would look like regular meat in the freezer. Like if somebody opened it up,
For sure.
yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell.
Look, man,
people
flesh
meat.
is flesh.
Yeah.
Flesh is absolutely flesh. You know, what you see at the grocery store, you can cut up a human body and make it look pretty goddamn close.
Yeah,
Pretty close.
Is this
okay.
through experience or?
Look, no, come on, man. You know, blood is blood. You know, mammals are mammals. You cut that stuff open. You know, it's not like okay, so let's go through the families here. So we're certainly not fish. We're certainly not fowl. You know, birds with hollow bones. We are those mammals, those beings that are, you know, walking
Maybe
around
like a deer steak or a
on the ground.
beef steak or just we look like steak.
Dude, we are red meat all day. So we're not like bunnies or, you know, what else is, I know bunnies have a bit of a white meat to them. Just a
pig?
bit. Just
Well,
a
that's
bit.
what more of like a pig?
I would have assumed it would be more like a pork
Pork
almost
meat.
a pinkish kind of, but maybe not. I don't know. I don't want to look. I won't want to see it, but I just would have. Now in the show they depicted it. It looked like a steak.
It did.
Yeah.
So refresh our listeners' memories, what prompted him to keep the bicep of like this guy? Like, what was the draw? Is because he was
He was
again, like,
attracted to it.
but so it was because he was attracted to it, not because this was a guy that had struggled with him and they had wrestled.
Yeah.
You know, he did a suplex off of the
Top rope.
off the top rope, or
From what I remember reading on it was that he had
pile drive to the face,
Yeah.
punch to the face.
From what I remember reading on, he had a fascination with the bicep muscles.
The muscles,
and that,
he was into muscular zoos.
Yeah, he was into that, and like
Muscular
dudes, like the torso, like he liked that fit look, and I don't know if because it was like a meatier part or if that had anything to do with it, like if he is actually, but I know he just had they actually had a name for it. I actually talk about it in that show when you're obsessed with like certain parts of the body. He would focus on like a certain part of the body, and that would be his obsession then. So I guess
So he was
that's
like a
why
bicep torso kind of guy.
Yes.
What do you want me to be to make you sleep with me?
Yep.
You're my obsession.
So
Animotion? Come on,
Yes.
anybody. Animotion.
I'm in the zone right now, so I'm probably gonna miss most of those ones.
But anyway, going to what you're talking about is he's like reaching another stage in the life of Dahmer where he's pushing the envelope a little farther. He's like, I have these bodies. I'm like got heads in my locker, parts of bodies. I'm painting stuff. Now he's like, I want to consume my victims.
It was just another way for him to keep them with him, kind of like
close.
Figuring like, oh, if I consume them, you'll always be with me. One of them deals
Until he poops them out.
Yeah, I mean,
this whole guy's life so far. Wrap your grapes around this one. His whole life has just been pushing the envelope to see what he can get away with,
and he gets away with it.
Well, and to the point where he doesn't. So, what have we talked about in previous episodes, right? So he was this prankster over and over again, this prankster until he doesn't get away with it. Like, so he did epileptic, episodes and faked that. And, he even had friends following him and doing the Dahmer. Then he stands into the old senior photos or whatever until he didn't get away with that. Somebody caught it and they blacked out his photo.
Yes.
And then, he started touching boys and he would do this, that, and the other thing until he couldn't. He just kept pushing the envelope. Obviously, multiple envelopes in multiple directions, but he just kept pushing and pushing and pushing.
But he gets off on that. It's like the whole thing. Yeah, that's just his.
I mean, I think he definitely had mental illness, and it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And to feed his needs or hungers, he would just keep pushing it, I think, to the next thing until
that's exactly it.
Until that would go away.
He just kept going.
He chilled until the next episode.
So we're talking about Ernest Miller, September 3rd, and then we're going to go 21 days later.
Oh, that's like a movie.
Yeah. September 24th, 1990 is David Thomas. And
is he the founder of Wendy's?
That's his same name.
Indeed. Actually, fun fact, he used to work at KFC prior to that.
Yeah, and that's why he started Wendy's, because he wanted to get out of KFC town.
So
you're talking about Dahmer or David Dahmer?
Possibly both.
Okay.
So this guy, same type deal, promises him money, invites him back to his apartment. But this time, when he gets him back to the apartment, he realizes he drugs him or whatever, knocks him out, and then realizes, like, I'm not attracted to this guy. So his whole thing was,
I changed my mind.
Yeah, like after he got him back, maybe
like he took his beer goggles off.
It happens to the best of us.
You ever go to like a club and you look cool, like you look good, and
I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Yeah. I'm just saying,
like one mirror is very kind.
Yeah,
the next mirror it was not as nice.
It was probably good lighting in the club, and then he got him home and realized, I don't know if he met him in a club, but I'm just saying he got him home and realizes, like, yeah, I'm not digging this dude. So, but he killed him anyway, dismembered him, but just didn't keep anything. Just kind of got rid of everything. He did.
I would say it would be $50 to make you holla.
Dang, he gets paid doing a wild thing. Yeah. Except this guy gets murdered doing a wild thing.
He did use the dismemberment process as a photo op stuff, so he got photos of that for his collection and stuff.
And just threw him in his top drawer. That was his spot.
Yeah,
like top drawer.
So that was September 1990, and then he kind of went dormant for a little while, and then we didn't have much going on. And then not until February of 1991, and it was February 18th, 1991, he meets Curtis Strouder. Strouder, I guess is how you would say it. 17 years old. So this guy here, he meets him at a bus stop and, promises him money and sex and whatever else. Come back to my place, does the same old stuff, strangles him with a leather strap, they said. And he dismembered the body, cut it up into pieces, but he kept the genitals and the hands and the skull for his collection. So now he's holding on the hands and which I don't know. He did that before, but I guess with this particular.
I wonder if he was trying to work out his own little makeshift, double Dutch rudder with the hands and the genitals.
What you're explaining is like
the gentles. So a double Dutch rudder.
What's that? I don't know what that is.
So a double Dutch rudder. Basically, so let's pretend right now that I'm sitting next to Matt. Mm-hmm. So a double Dutch rudder is only because, look, listen. I've seen this on the internet. It exists because, jerk friends of mine send these stupid fucking things to me. So double Dutch rudder, one person's hand on the other person's junk, that other person's hand on the first person's junk. And then with each person's other hand, they're moving the arms that are holding the hands that are on each other's junk. That is the double
He
Dutch
said,
rudder.
little boys messing around with the girls playing double Dutch rudder.
Yeah,
That's a whole thing.
Christ, I hate these
Dutch
fucking
rudder.
I can't stand the fucking internet.
Yeah, there's all kinds of crazy things on there.
That's where all this
shit.
stuff's
There's a
at.
ton of it.
Yeah.
There's a ton of it. But yeah, so this.
Yeah, let's get back to the hotel here.
Yeah, because we still got a boatload to get.
We got
through.
11 to go.
Yeah. So yeah, this Curtis Strouder, yeah, he kept those parts, and yeah, it's sad, but I mean, this is what this guy's up to. So April 4th, 1991, we meet Earl Lindsey. The same thing. Dahmer meets up. They went back to his apartment. So this time he decides to do the drilling stuff. And this is where one of the first guys, he uses the drill and tries to put acid in,
This is to make the zombie.
He was trying to make a zombie out of him.
Wait. So just for those who may not be familiar with this, when you say he uses the drill and he uses the acid, what do you mean?
So he had
electrical
like
drill.
Basically, yeah, like a
With
drill
a
you
bit
would
on
put
it.
screws in, He put like
A very small bit, like a very
Right.
tiny bit. And he wanted to drill into the side of the skull, into the brain.
wireless
So
drill,
he's
actually.
drilling a hole into the skull.
into the skull, and he was trying to aim for like the frontal lobe, and he was gonna put, I think it was muriatric. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, to like try
Acid.
to, yeah.
Muriatric acid. in there.
Mariachi. That's like a
Mariachi
Mexican.
acid.
That's a Mexican 3-piece band. They play really big guitars.
Yes.
No, not that. But he,
Yeah, like that.
But he was putting that acid in there, but it didn't work. I mean, it would just kill people within no time at all.
But he was trying. He was.
Is this like some sort of makeshift lobotomy or something like that?
Yeah, basically just trying to turn him into a zombie, because like he was like, if I keep them alive, they're not going to decay, but I can do what I want
And
with them.
they're not going to run away from me because
Right.
they're brain dead pretty much.
My lobotomy.
So at some point
It's the
during
way
all
they
this,
wanna live.
yeah, at some point during all this, Earl woke up and was like, I have a headache. What time is it? That's what he said. And then he just ended up strangling him, then putting him down.
This shit's not working.
Yeah.
It's like, man, back to the drawing board. See, the guy he tried things. He was like, he's trying to get better.
I was going to say, so I'm thinking of like Dexter's lab, but it's Dahmer's lab.
Dahmer's lab, yes.
Yeah, so he attempted to like preserve the guy's flesh in a saltwater mixture or whatever to try to keep it, but it just it didn't work. So on May 24th, 1991. So this guy here, if you watch the show, basically had a whole episode dedicated to this guy. This is the deaf mute, the Tony Hughes character in the show and in real life. They met up at Club 219. Now, some people say that they had like a relationship for a little while, that they were actually kind of together.
That's
And
what the show was
showed that
portraying.
in the show, yeah.
Certainly alluded to that.
Yeah, so the thing I don't understand is that was the case, how people didn't look at Dahmer right away. Like they knew he was dating and stuff, but
Another one that he got away with.
yeah. So he, according to this here, offered him money to post for pictures and all that and watch some videos and whatnot, and continued to drug him and strangle him, his normal MO. And but this time he actually left the corpse laying around like in his bedroom, and the corpse was laying around there for a few days, I think, before he actually got around to dismembering it. So that was on May 24th. So not more than 3 days later, and while this is going on with Tony Hughes' body laying there, this is where he meets the 14-year-old Konarak synthosimophone, I guess.
That was the brother.
Yeah, that was the brother of the boy earlier. Yeah. But 14-year-old, and he did not know, he was not aware that this was the brother or even related to the boy that he had sexually molested earlier. But he had lured him back to his...
How did he not know that? He had to have had some idea.
I mean...
Are you kidding me? How would he have any idea that this guy happens to be the brother of the kid that he was touching inappropriately?
I didn't seeing them like together. Maybe they live somewhere completely different. Never
They
mind.
might look similarly.
I mean,
to one
like
another,
he might have
but-
seen them together, but that just sounds. Yeah, I was completely off on that.
No, I mean, he didn't... I don't think he would have had any idea. I don't think he would have put it together.
I just thought they were like running around the same neighborhood because they were kids. Like you see them like riding their bikes together,
No,
skateboarding by or something.
I don't think it was anything like that.
Yeah,
but
I don't think he was scoping for kids on bikes.
Okay.
I just think it's crazy though that
They came to him.
it was like in a totally different part of town. I think where he was living now versus where the other event happened with the boy.
Okay.
It is kind of... It's not like it was in the same neighborhood, in other words.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, I was just asking questions.
Yeah, so this is the one where he met, they meet. This is another one they did pretty much a whole episode on it in the show. And this is the one that most people know about. And this is the one that really, it's crazy that he did not get caught for this, because as we know, as they showed in the show, he, comes back for pictures and stuff, and they end up having sex at some point, and then he's drugging him, and he attempts to drill a hole in his head and do the whole zombie thing. He does inject acid into him.
So he got the hole drilled?
In his head. But oddly enough, they said like there was not much blood, if any blood, from the, I guess when you drill into the skull.
He was saying like the drill bit he was using was like a
finer bit.
Yeah, very fine bit.
So while he's, I guess, waiting for this to work, he's like leaving him there. He's like, I'm going to go get some more beer, more alcohol. So he leaves the apartment, and meanwhile, this Konarak kid kind of comes out of it a little bit and somehow makes his way out of the apartment. I don't know how. He was like in a stupor, but he was naked pretty much, walking around the neighborhood, and these girls find him there, and they're like trying to help him, and he's really incoherent, not making sense. And
so it wasn't out on the very front of the apartment complex. He was kind of around the neighborhood.
I think he was like out in front, like
Okay.
in that vicinity,
Yeah.
close enough that when Dahmer was on his way back, he was able to kind of intercept everything. The police were already called and on their way, I guess, and they all kind of met up. Well, Dahmer kind of went up to the boy, put his arm around him. He was like, this is my boyfriend. He's 19 and this and that. And the cops were skeptical, and the girls were there young, like basically like they showed in the show, like, no, there's no way. He's a little kid. Can't you tell? He's a little boy. And he's like, nah, his nationality, they look younger, but he's really 19. He was playing that whole angle, like, no, he's older than he looks. And he even invited the police up to, he's like, come up to the apartment. I'll show you pictures. We took some pictures earlier. So he brought him up and showed him the pictures from earlier to say, hey, this is like we have a relationship. They actually kind of smelled something when they were up there, that smell of
like an acid or flesh, or
just
from
like
those barrels that he
smell
had.
of death, you know, that, but they said they weren't, there definitely was a smell in the air. So the police officer looked into the bedroom real quick, but I guess didn't turn on the lights or didn't notice the body laying there.
It's funky.
Yeah, which is crazy. So, I mean, that Tony Hughes' body is laying there, and they were like, hey, just take care of this, and with the kid, basically like, just take care of him, and we're going to let you go.
Again, as we talked about numerous times, they just, they were doing their job, but they didn't really want to be bothered with the whole.
Correct.
They're like, okay, nobody's dead here.
And equally stuff we talked about, this is that thing, this is just one more implement in Dahmer's toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how to game the police. That is to say, he knows that the police want nothing to do with the gay community, the ghetto he's living in, or anything like that. So
and he would mention that numerous times also.
Yeah.
He'd be like, oh, it's just gay stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's gay stuff. You
the
don't
more
get it.
he mentions gayness to cops, the more cops want to get away from him.
Well, they actually made a comment, I think, on they had recordings of the call in to the, and they were like, yeah, we got to get deloused
after.
or whatever, something along the lines. We got to get sprayed down.
That is true. So that, fun fact, that did happen.
Yeah.
That actual callback to,
the station or
home
whatever.
base and whatever, that did happen.
Which again, with the AIDS and all that stuff then too, the cops were just like, oh.
Well, they were actually too, the police, I think, were under, not to defend anything they were doing, but they were under pressure as well not to harass that particular.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like
that community
the
or
gay community and all that. Not defending anything they did. They definitely didn't do their job. All they would have to do was pull the guy's Dahmer's record up and see that he's a
oh, wow. Yeah.
offender.
Again, why do we not talk about that? Aren't they running his license?
So we're in 1990. Were these cops rolling with laptops in their cars at that point? Probably not.
Probably not, but they had a radio. They could have called back.
Yeah, they could have called it in. We have a Jeffrey,
Dahmer,
whatever his
date
name,
of birth,
Dahmer.
and can you look him up?
Yeah, can you look him up real quick?
Do we have any
we got some
priors?
weird shit going on at this
Oh,
house.
yeah, he molested a 13-year-old.
Yeah, and then right away, okay, let's check the house.
And then they would have,
1016, Pimp in Distress.
right.
Is that what it is?
No, I forget what the
Yeah, that was a
number
good
is.
one though.
They didn't reference in the show, the boy was bleeding from like the anus and stuff like that too. He was definitely in bad shape. Now, whether or not the police thought that was from consensual sex or something like that.
Wait, the cops wrote that down in the statement?
I don't know that they wrote that down, but the girls, I think,
Said,
in
look,
their statement said he's
okay.
bleeding. Like they didn't reference that in the show, but I've heard accounts where he was bleeding, not from the head, but from the anus.
From his anus.
I don't understand the whole thing.
Yeah. Long story short is that
Bad hemorrhoids.
no, but long story short is he should have been this
is it.
This should have been done right here.
Done.
But it's not. And they leave him alone, and within like an hour he ends up killing the kid. And
The 9 Lives of Dahmer.
Yeah, and
Something tells me that acid never made its way to the brain.
I don't know.
So you've seen this before, right? If you try to pour water into you've seen some sort of liquid try to make its way into a very thin pipeline. Some means by which you would hope it goes. And
Like
it's
a
not
bottle-
going to go there because it's a displacement.
Too much, yeah. Whoosh,
There's
all over the place.
there's air or there's something in there that will not afford the water to fill that hole.
All the listeners, try to get a bottle of vodka and pour it into a flask.
Yeah.
A mess.
Right. Exactly. Well, yeah. There's
Yeah,
that.
you need like some sort of.
I'm just thinking that
Yeah.
it
It's
couldn't
not gonna
get
work.
past the air pressure that would have otherwise
No.
been in that little hole that was drilled. You need a bigger bit.
Unless he had
Dahmer.
like a little straw, like a stirrer straw.
Well, there's that, and so
But he wasn't into that,
We'll
yeah.
see if that holds up. We'll
Okay.
see if that makes its way into this toolbox.
Yeah, so that was on May 27th that the whole thing went on. So
Of 91.
91. So we're in 1991, yep. So a little over a month later, June 30th, 1991, there's a gay pride day parade going on in Chicago. And Dahmer travels there for this and meets this Matt Turner. And this guy, he wanted to be a model, and he kind of promised him all this stuff like, hey, come on back. I can get us bus tickets and come on back with me. And same MO, drugs him, strangles him, basically cuts off his head. And then this time he took the head and wrapped it and put it in the freezer. So he's all about like trying to preserve these body parts, the ones that he wants, like the heads and the penises and that type stuff, and like sometimes the hands.
These are memories that last a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean pretty much. He took the torso then and put it in that blue barrel, that notorious blue barrel that you
Yes.
saw.
That they walk out of
Yeah.
the cop show.
50-gallon drum.
Mm-hmm. So this guy just has. I just couldn't imagine the smell, and they talked about it in the show, and people did complain a lot about the smells, and he's just making up excuses. Like my freezer's down or my fish are dead, and
Was
it's
he
always
using
something.
Was this a hacksaw, or did he have some sort of electrical tools that he was using? Was there like
Well,
noises?
there were people that heard all kinds of like clanging and different stuff going on. Now, I don't know if he used chainsaws.
This isn't like the 1960s or so, like where people kept to their own. Like, oh, I heard stuff going on over there,
Well,
but
and
we
in the
kept
60s,
to our own.
they weren't living in these kind of projects either. So maybe he was just a woodsman. Maybe he was just a man of the outdoors with a chainsaw.
9 o'clock in the morning.
He
or like-
worked at a chocolate
Yeah,
factory. He worked from 11 to 7 at a chocolate factory.
And then he would say stuff. I mean, I don't know if this is true, but saying to people like he's a butcher, or didn't he say stuff like that?
What's that? Did he would tell people?
Yeah, or something like, "Oh, I just got some bad meat from the store."
Well, he
I
would
was
always
trying to
just
cut
say
up
that
and-
his freezer would go bad, that he would just
Oh.
have bad meat and stuff like
Okay.
that. But so that was June 30th.
I don't believe you.
Yeah. So not, I mean, that's 90 miles away to Chicago, roughly, they said. And July 4th, he's back there again in Chicago, again at another.
The Windy City.
Yeah, I guess maybe he's like, oh, let me go over here. And I don't know if he, figured, I don't know, maybe he was feeling the heat in Milwaukee, maybe like at the clubs around there. I don't know why he was deciding to travel, but he goes back there July 4th and meets Jeremiah Weinberger, who's 23 at a bar there, a gay bar, and invites him back, tells him, I have bus tickets, same whole ordeal. And they had sex that night, and Jeremiah spends the night. But eventually, at some point, he got sick of, the sex, Jeremiah, and he was like, hey, I'm gonna head out.
So it was a night of lovemaking.
Yeah.
Best thing I ever heard. At some point, Jeremiah got tired of the sex.
He's like, "Yo, Dahmer, come on, man.
Had enough.
God,
I need-
I'm getting black and blue back there, man.
I need a drink, man. Come on, Dahmer."
Call it quits.
So thirsty. What do you got in that blue barrel over there, man? So thirsty.
You're making some moonshine over there. Nah, but
So it's interesting to hear that Dahmer's basically importing at this point, right? So he's going out of
different
his,
areas, yeah.
Yeah,
And like
searching.
I said, these two here are both within a couple days. So I don't know if maybe, I don't know. Like, why would he go to Chicago? That's 90 miles away. That'd be like for us, from here to like Philly, maybe.
That's
or
work.
It's an hour and a half.
There's got to
That's
be
not
gay
bad,
bars
though.
between Chicago and Milwaukee.
Yeah,
Someplace.
you would think.
Truck stop.
Yeah.
But no, in his mind, he was like, he wanted to try something new. He was looking for a new, you know what I mean? He's tired of the same sites. He's been working the Strip. He's checking out, he likes the pizza there in Chicago.
Deep dish.
Yeah.
Well,
so he was like, yeah, try something different.
Yeah,
Take a little trip.
He wasn't having it, I guess, when he wanted to leave. So he, strangled him and murdered him and did all that.
After all that sex.
Yep.
That's the way he treats him.
That's so hilarious. At some point, he just got tired of the sex.
At some point, he just got tired of the sex.
It's done.
So that was July, what we say? Well, I have July 7th here. That's a July 4th. So it was sometime in early July, we'll say.
I don't think anyone's going to argue with you over
the
3
different
days.
Yeah. It was within that range, but it was roughly around that time. So July 10th is the date that he's fired from Ambrosia Chocolate Factory.
Oh.
So I'm pretty sure that...
That's a sad day. Now, look, man, this guy was a seasoned professional chocolatier at this place. Like, what went wrong? How did he lose his job?
Well, this is what was going on. So
okay, yeah,
as he was murdering these guys, and we're talking days apart, and he's not able to keep up with getting rid of the body, so he's piling them up in his bathroom in the tub, and he's like, I'll get to him when I get to him. So he was calling into work, taking like a personal day, thinking like, I'll just spend the day dismembering.
I need a cleanup day.
Wow.
Yeah, to just play catch up.
Yeah,
this explains so much.
He's just got bodies laying all over the place. So he was just getting in over his head with these,
or in over their heads.
Yeah, no pun intended. But that's what was going on. So he was just calling off work, calling off to try to clean up his mess. But he did have installed, they said, like security cameras, but they weren't working. Like he went and got like
He's so lazy.
Yeah, he went and got like security system, like cameras, so that nobody would go into his apartment when he wasn't there. I did hear that he had like a lot of locks on his door. Now I heard people say he didn't have as many as they showed on the show.
4 or 5.
But he definitely didn't want anybody getting in or getting out. So, but yeah, that's why he lost his job.
Because he had to take time off of work.
Yeah, to dismember.
See, that's one of the things he could have called in. They're like, Dahmer, why you need so much time? He's like, man, I got bodies in my tub.
You understand,
Boss, you don't even know.
I just need to get rid of them. The guy's like, come on, Dahmer.
You know how you complain about having to do laundry? Yeah. Let me tell you.
Got 8 bodies in here, buddy.
Mm-hmm. So, July 15th or July 12th, I see 2 dates.
Give or take.
In that range. He meets Oliver Lacey, who's 23 years old, and ended up back at Jeff's place, kind of messed around, had some drinks, and Jeff strangled him once again. I mean, this is just like a broken record. It's just the same thing over and over again. Always the same MO. This is the first time, though, that he decided to have necrophilia with the actual corpse, the whole corpse, and had sex with it.
Pushing that envelope.
Yeah. Then he did the same stuff, sliced off some pieces, cannibalized them and stuff like that, and put Lacey's head in the fridge and, put the heart in the freezer. Put all the other body parts in the freezer, so he was, like, storing the meat up. And
winter's coming.
Yeah. And it does say here that he did, like you were asking earlier, he did put some flesh and stuff into the trash, so he was still disposing of, I think he would.
Yeah, there had to be too much.
Other ways to get rid of it.
He wasn't keeping fingers and toes, man.
Right. So he was, like I said, he was laid off from his job, so he wasn't going to make rent. He's got all these bodies piling up. It's winding down now here. Like, it's just, there's no way out, basically, for this guy.
It is approaching that out of control. Yeah. It is spiraling completely out of control.
So the actual last victim is going to be July 19th, 1991, Joseph Bradehoft. He met him at a bus stop, and it was like...
I'm just thinking, like, so he's met people at not just the gay bars, but the bus stop.
Yeah, bus stop, bookstores.
Bookstore. Yeah, where's some other gas stations?
Mm-hmm. And they were saying, like, around this time, because he's not able to take baths or showers at his house. He's stinking. He's not, you know what I mean? He's just not taking care of himself. And... he just stunk.
He wasn't using Head and Shoulders.
I mean, the apartment stinks. He stinks.
Wasn't he using the Head and Shoulders?
Yes.
Yeah. So he meets this guy at a bus stop, and the guy had a 6-pack on him.
I thought you were going to say 6-pack abs.
Yeah, no, he had a 6-pack of beer, and he decided to go back, Jeff, to his apartment.
Get on the bus.
Yeah.
Did they take the bus? Do we know? or did they walk?
I don't know.
Forget this bus. Look, save your bus fare. Come back to my place.
They probably did take, unless the bus stop
pictures.
was within walking distance. You know,
bus
I'm not
stops,
sure.
pictures, 6-packs.
So they went
Party.
back there and had oral sex, but ended up strangling this guy. So this is the last guy.
I think when two dudes are doing that, I think they call that a 96 instead of a 69.
Is that the big
I didn't know
96er?
No, I just made that up.
96. Oh, yeah, because there's two. I get you.
I
Yeah,
got
makes
no
sense.
idea what the hell that could possibly be. Like 90s, so I think of a 69, right? But then you think of a 96, you're basically facing opposite directions. So how would you make that work? Right. So all right.
It's
just think of the number 96 versus a 69. Like there's nothing that's coming together. 96 is completely opposite. So everybody's just going their own different ways.
Right. When you're facing it.
Thought too much on that one.
No.
So with this
Good
guy,
try. That was a good try.
with this guy here, this is pretty nasty, but I mean, on top of everything else, but he let the body lay there in bed when he was sleeping like next to him for a few days until like the head started to collect maggots. He had just maggots all over his head.
Stop.
Yeah.
What?
Wait, what time of year was this?
This would have been in July. So you figure
hot fun in the summertime.
Because it's too hot.
Yeah.
Baby.
So then
It's a good one.
he ended up cleaning off the head.
Because
cleaning it up and
all
putting
the
it in
flies
fridge.
in a little apartment and they're just going at the head.
Just eating on it.
Oh, can you imagine the stench just from Dahmer alone?
Oh, it's bad.
This is worse than Poltergeist when that guy bit that chicken leg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for real.
But it's the head.
So he ended up putting it, cleaning it up, putting it in the freezer, trying to preserve it. And that was actually the last person that died from Dahmer. That was the last victim. Now, the next guy is the one, if you watch the show, Dahmer, it's the opening episode is with this Tracy Edwards guy. So that was on July 22nd, 1991. And Tracy Edwards was out. He was about 32 years old. And I heard stories where it goes where they were out, and that's how they show it in the show. He was out with like two other friends, so there was like three of them, and that Dahmer approached them all and was offering them all money. And I think they were aware who he was, or kind of knew.
They've heard of him.
They seen him
Because
he
was like, you tried to buy me a drink before.
Yeah,
And the other
so
guy,
they kind of knew. Now I heard people say that he gave addresses, two different addresses, like for them to come, like you two go to this address, and then he gave him his actual address. So I don't know if any of that stuff was true or not.
Sneaky.
But at any rate, this Edwards guy ends up back at Dahmer's apartment. And if you haven't seen the show, basically how it goes is he comes into the apartment and he kind of knows something's off almost immediately when Dahmer kind of shuts the door behind him and starts locking it.
Locks 5 locks, and god damn,
Right.
doesn't it stink in here?
Yeah, he noticed the
You
smell right away. And
Yeah, he's
all
like,
that.
man, can you open a window or something? Like, it's like, oh yeah, it's just the fish. I think
The
he's like
fish.
trying to
Like,
blame it on.
Damn, dude, your breath stink.
Well, actually about the fish, he's like, hey, why don't you go look at my fish over there? Sends him over to the fish tank to kind of get him to turn away from him, and that's where he's back there mixing up the drinks, and he comes over with the handcuffs and ends up cuffing the guy. Like the one cuff goes on. And he's like, hey, what are you doing? This and that. And now he knows something's up. And according to, now there were...
Does this go beyond like gay fun or whatever, might have been into? Like, I'm sure at some point Jeff would have said, oh, this is just, what I'm into, or I'm into bondage or whatever.
He basically, he was like, I want to leave or what, I want to get out. And
That's why he cuffed him.
According to Edwards, he pulled out a knife on him. And he was like, look, do what I say and I won't hurt you and all that stuff. And they end up in Dahmer's room.
He wanted to watch movies.
Yeah, and he's like, sit down here. We're going to watch. He's like, he puts in that Exorcist movie. That was his movie that would get him in the mood. And he did.
Always.
He did say about that part where he was like,
Nothing gets me more in the mood than sitting back and watching what was it, The Exorcist,
The
the first, or was it a
Exorcist.
sequel?
it was part 3.
Part-
Exorcist
That's the one with the
Man.
lady walking on the wall.
When two just
don't
aren't
remember it.
enough.
Uh-huh.
The devil came back from Georgia.
He's like, 1 and 2, don't do it for me. Let's put in 3.
So that whole part about the, he's like, take off your shirt, and he puts his head down on it, and he's listening to his heartbeat. And he's like, basically saying, I can hear your heart. I'm going to eat it. I'm going to eat your heart. Like according to Edwards, that stuff he did say that stuff to him.
I believe him.
I think I did read or hear that Dahmer, some of the stuff, he doesn't remember that way, but who you going to trust? I don't know. But yeah, so.
Not that prankster.
No, I know. I mean, that's the thing with
That wily Jeff Dahmer. What will he say next?
this is one of the only interactions that we actually have, like two
Two people.
Yeah, I mean, there's the boy that got in the tussle with him and got away, and then
But there's no reason for this guy to lie
there really
about what
there's
actually
not.
happened.
There's really not. So he, at some point, Dahmer leaves the room, and he's drunk himself, and Tracy's able to hit him and knock him down and basically get out, and somehow got the right lock and was able to get out of the apartment and was able to flag down police. And this is like 11:30 at night.
Was he screaming for help as he ran out? Like that's what I heard is like people were hearing him running down the street.
And that's certainly what the 10-part series on Netflix would allude to, is that this dude is just running like crazy,
Yeah.
and he's screaming and yelling like anybody can, if anyone can hear me, please help me.
Which late at night in those neighborhoods, people too are like, close the windows.
Oh, another one of those. Yeah.
Well, actually, like when he first met up with the police and flagged them down, he was like, "Hey, can you just get these handcuffs off?" Like, he wasn't even worried about getting.
Oh, and right away the police are like, "What the hell's this guy doing with some handcuffs
They
on?"
were like, "Well, we don't have keys to fit that," and they were like, "Well, what happened?" The way it was kind of told, it was like almost if they were able to get him out of the cuffs, he was embarrassed about it and was just gonna be done with it. So just imagine that if they would have been able to get those cuffs off. And been like,
And was he like half naked, shirt off, pants on?
he was, he was definitely disheveled. I don't know if he was like half naked, but there was enough there that they were probably.
It looked like he was in a struggle,
right? But my point being is, if it would have happened that way, he was okay with just kind of, And they were like, no. He ended up taking him back to the apartment, and when they got back to Jeff's apartment, Jeff said at that point he knew it was pretty much over. But he was getting so sloppy with all this.
Correct.
And
Again, it's spiraling.
Yeah,
absolutely spiraling.
But you have to get tired of that.
This guy's facing
after a while.
This guy's got a pile of fucking bodies in his apartment. Plus, he's on the verge of eviction. Life is about to be very much over for this guy.
Yeah, so he let him in or whatever. And they actually ended up in the bedroom, and I guess the one drawer was open that he had all the Polaroids in.
Of like heads off.
Right, and then one officer was in there. He saw him and started going through them, and he's like, wait a minute. These are in this room or in this area and this and that. He's like, get in here to the other cop. They come in, and he's like, cuff him. And then at that point, they kind of knew. I think he made a comment almost like,
you got me, or
you should kill me for what I've done, or
something. Yeah,
he was all about like
guilt.
From the time he got caught, he was just like, just kill me. I just want to be done with it. He basically, that's what he wanted. And as we know, eventually that's what he'll end up getting. But so that was on the 2nd. That was around 11:30, 12 o'clock. You figured, oh, those cops are there. And he got back that next day, which would have been the 23rd, like 1:30 in the morning. They were back at the station. And from like 1:30 to almost like 7 in the morning, he just let it all out, told them everything. I mean, it was almost like, I don't know if it was a relief to him to talk about it, but he was just cooperating and telling them everything.
Was it what was the soda that he fancied? It was
grape drank.
It was grape.
Was it grape
no,
drank?
Was it like an orange
Was
crush?
It orange?
It was orange crush.
I don't know.
I have no idea. I think in the Netflix series, they illustrated him drinking something orange.
Yeah, it was an orange crush soda. And I don't know if that was true or not, but I think they said when they sat him down, he was like, can I get a orange crush soda?
I know he wanted soda and coffee.
Yeah.
And he wanted
and then he just started.
Yeah, and he was up. They said it was like 6 hours.
Let it all out.
Yeah. And then the next day, I guess, then he went back in. He's like, hey, I forgot about. I mean, he had so many that.
Hey, hold on a second.
He's like, I forgot about these other two or whatever. So
it's like this dude's recording a podcast.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
part 5 of Dahmer.
Stop me if I'm getting too ahead here, but I recall reading something about while Dahmer was in prison, spilling the beans and telling his story to not just, the would-be officers or the prosecutors or the psychiatrists or the psychologists or the whomevers.
Any of these psych group.
In order for he would basically say, he said to these guys, look, I need to smoke cigarettes. I gotta smoke cigarettes. In order for me to just sit here, I can't continue the story without cigarettes, because they would keep him going and going. But this was right at that conversion time, I guess, where they started removing, the ability to smoke cigarettes from the prison systems, at least out in wherever the hell this guy, I think he was in California. I think he ended up in California.
Who's that?
Dahmer. Am I wrong?
No, I'm pretty sure that. Let me look here.
Doesn't matter. We'll get to that.
Right.
But in the meantime, yeah. So the dude wanted cigarettes. So again, everyone who was just fascinated with him wanted to, milk this teat for all it was worth.
Mm-hmm.
So sure, man, whatever, man, just
Let's give
smoke
him
your
whatever.
fucking brains out. Just smoke your cigarettes. So other prisoners were complaining about that, not complaining that it was, oh, I can't breathe. Oh, it's so bad.
Or were they showing privilege towards
Correct. That they were
Yeah.
showing, like, what the fuck, man? You just took the cigarettes away from me and you're letting this dude smoke his brains out while he's just telling you his story? Man, that's messed up. That's messed up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that part of it. I know that you're right about the cigarette. I know he was smoking cigarettes, and then because that was part. He had the coffee, the cigarettes, the sodas.
Yeah,
and
his
all that
story.
stuff.
His story was top billing
in
at the time.
In the initial, when they did the initial interviews with him and stuff, and he was giving up everything, spilling the beans that first night, because I mean it was like all night long into the next morning. It was Detective Patrick Kennedy is the one that basically he was kind of talking to. I don't think it was like they showed on the show where there were the two cops in there with him. I'm not sure though.
Like good cop, bad cop type thing.
Right.
Yes, they didn't need that because he was just talking.
Yeah.
They didn't have to play that game.
So while in these interrogations, or not interrogations, but while he was in here kind of like telling him everything, he was telling him about his shrine that he was planning to build. And that's where we got back to like spray painting the skulls and all that. Like he had bought and planned on doing this altar almost to himself. And he had drawings of it. Or I don't know if he drew this out for the police of what he kind of envisioned with these blue lights and like the skulls and the bones and all that. So he could go there every day and kind of like stare at, because it basically to him that it was like
all his life's work.
his work. Yeah. And it was just,
to look
he was
at.
close to all these, in his eyes, he's like, oh, I kept all these as trophies or my, keeping them close to him. So he opened up about all that, about the first murder, and the second murder that happened at the Ambassador. He said that he didn't remember, like he was out and asleep or out of it and just kind of woke up that way. And I did hear that he said maybe the bruising on the guy's chest was like him, like he had an infatuation with hearts. Maybe he was going after the guy's heart, like in a drunk stupor
But he
and
was
stuff like that.
just kept hitting him in the
Right.
chest.
Right. So, yeah. So, on July 25th, 1991, they charged him with 4 counts of first-degree murder. And then they kept finding more and more body parts and different things, and it just kept growing and growing. So, it was like almost into the next year until, like, the trial actually began. But he pretty much told them everything. But, yeah, so eventually the trial was January 30th, 1992 for 15 counts of murder in Milwaukee. And then they were trying to go after that insanity plea. Like his team was like, hey, we can maybe get you. They looked at that Ed Gein case like they did in the show. They said about, look at these other cases. That was one example of where they could say you're mentally ill and, go that whole angle. But it didn't end up working out.
Going just real quick back for people listening, did they mention how long? Because I remember seeing that on the news, like, holy shit, like this guy had what? And the thing with the blue tub and all that, and them taking these things out, like how long did that last? Was that like a day or two that they were just...
You mean taking all the stuff out?
Yeah, because I remember seeing that on TV, and they just, the replays of like stuff, these guys carrying heavy stuff down these steps, because he had like an odd way of getting into his apartment.
Yeah, I don't know the exact timeline of how long that took, but I know that that part about them buying up all the stuff, all the stuff.
Oh, was
out
that
of
fake or true?
No, that was for real. Like they
didn't want anybody having any of
didn't
his
want
stuff trying to sell it 25, 30 years later.
Yeah, my understanding it was actually a group
yeah.
of local businessmen had gotten together and said, look, man, this guy makes Milwaukee look fucking bad.
Yeah, shitty.
Let's just get all of this shit out of here. We'll make sure we pay for all of it and we get everything. And
so everything loaded up, took it to a dump.
Mm-hmm.
But did people find stuff? Was there something like some people grabbed some things? Is there anything left?
who's to say? And
Yeah,
how
there
could you?
could be.
And how
You could never
confirm
tell.
that?
Yeah.
Right.
You'd
Like,
never be able to prove any of it, but
yeah, I could hold up this empty coffee cup and say,
This
"Oh yeah,
was
this was
Dahmer's.
Jeffrey Dahmer's coffee
This is his
cup."
bud can.
Will prove
Yeah.
me wrong. All right.
well, the family of Konarak, the 14-year-old boy, they did win a settlement against I don't know if it was the city of Milwaukee or who was responsible for basically the police department for not
Catching
catching
their
them
son.
at that time. You know what I mean? They kind of let that go. And I think it was like $850,000, they said, was the number. And they did talk about that in the show as well.
You can't put a price tag.
Right. But so Dahmer then ended up, obviously that insanity plea did not work, and they didn't go that route. He was given, I think it was like 15 life sentences. And
if I'm not mistaken, I'm sorry, but I got to interject with this just because the three of us have history with this.
mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, the idea for that insanity plea came from a strapping young man, also from Wisconsin.
Ed Gein, yeah.
That's
Ed
right.
Gein.
Ed Gein he played and won the old insanity plea, and he got a one-way ticket to, padded room, walking around the grassy knolls and just do.
But Dahmer did not get a death sentence.
Well, they didn't have it.
Yeah, they didn't have it.
In that, but he wanted it. Like he was all.
He begged. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he asked for it. But no, they did talk about that Ed Gein in the show as well.
They brought it up.
And that was, like he said, Ed Gein went to like a psych hospital, and that's where he spent the rest of his days.
It wasn't a jail per se. It was a comfy padded place.
So somebody like Dahmer comes along, a good attorney is going to say, come on, let's hope for Christ's sake that you're not the first one to do this. And again, this is just speaking as an attorney, right? So as an attorney, there's got to be some level of case law to which I can reference that I can present to a judge and say, look, this happened before. This isn't the first time. This is what this guy got.
Hey, checked out page 5 of Gein.
Right. Thus, so Dahmer's attorney invoked Ed Gein. The judge said, fuck off. This guy is not in any way, shape, or form. Despite so Ed Gein was a grave robber. This guy is a fucking killer.
Right.
Well, they were both killers.
Yeah.
Ed Gein killed what, 2 people?
That were proven.
Yeah, but they did say
But he was a grave robber.
that Dahmer did try that one time. I don't know if we talked about that.
The grave robbing.
And
We did talk about
It was
that.
like the ground was too hard and all that. He
Mhm.
couldn't-
We
couldn't
talked
get-
about how much would you accept, I don't care how broke you are, how much would you accept to help some random stranger dig up a body?
Oh, that's right. We did talk about that.
Hey, man,
But,
what you doing? I'm just digging up some bodies.
So
Okay.
upon his sentencing, the father Lionel and the stepmother, asked if they could have like 10 minutes, with him before he went off to prison, and they had their 10 minutes and gave their hugs and everything, and then said their goodbyes and all that.
Fist bump.
Yeah. So it was like 3 months after the trial in Milwaukee, he was sent to Ohio to be tried for the murder of Stephen Hicks, and pleaded guilty to that as well. And he got another life term for that murder. That was on May 1st, 1992. So once he was sentenced and everything, he was sent to Columbia Correctional Institution for the first year of his incarceration. He was, for the first year, he was in solitary. They kept him out of Gen Pop because they figured he's going to be a dead man as soon as he goes into Gen Pop.
Well, there were some people in jail that never heard of him and didn't know much because I guess some people didn't have like television rights or.
But word gets around. I mean,
Yeah.
And I'm sure they can get papers and different things like that. So I'm sure after he was in there, people were
Word
talking
travels
about it.
fast.
No doubt.
In
yeah.
the pen.
Who's that guy?
When you're making your chi-chi.
Yeah. So after he started his confessions, we forgot to bring this up, but he did ask for a Bible at that time, and he got back into reading the Bible, and kind of came up with this like, well, maybe if I can ask for forgiveness
You
and
can say
all
he's
that.
saved.
And
And he was in like the church in prison. Was that a true fact?
Well, he
or-
did. Yeah, in May of '94, he got baptized, and it was a guy named Roy Ratcliffe, the Church of Christ in Oklahoma Christian University. So he did come and do that.
Yeah, back to the 10-part series on
Mhm.
Jeffrey Dahmer. They did say the whole baptism and he found God.
Oh yeah, they baptized him in the muscle massager.
Right.
Like you'd find in the training room after football.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, one of those. Yeah.
So yeah, he found God. He was in cell block 11.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a trolling motor in there.
Well, he did at one point. Then he wanted to be put in
Makes bubbles.
Gen Pop because he wanted to have interaction like with people.
Yeah, want to make friends.
He just kind of wanted to. He was like, I'm finding God now. I feel like and they kind of this preacher and people around him were like. And even the girl, if you watch that Netflix documentary, the one we were just talking about, not the show, she was like, Jeffy, that's a death sentence. Like, you don't want to do that. And he was like, no, I want I just can't live like this. I need to have interaction and all that. So
While we're talking about this, just a quick little interjection. So if I'm to derive what I think you're saying, so Gen Pop is the general population of prisoners.
right.
So this isn't people who are in other levels such as solitary confinement or please insert fill in the blank. What other levels of prison might there be?
I'm not sure. I just know of those two. Like you're either in solitary or in general population. I don't know if they have different levels.
Yeah, that's where you all like eat lunch together. You know how you see like the prisoner shows? You're all in like the middle of the room. Sometimes fights break out. Sometimes you like play cards and.
Right.
So I'm thinking of things like, and I get it, right? So you've seen the worst of the worst of the worst on television, movies, and stuff like that. But then I think of like, well, what about the white collar crime guys? Mm-hmm. So is basically their whole stint in
solitary?
I think they're moving like
Gen Pop or solitary, either one.
That's like that Goodfellas stuff. I think they're in their own.
Maybe off in there.
Slicing garlic.
Yeah,
with,
I mean, not
blades.
Yeah, not
maybe
as much as that, but I think they are away from a general population of regular crime type people.
Just curious.
We could
know the lingo.
Is there like a sheriff or something we can call? Or
call a local constable?
Yeah.
Maybe. So on July 3rd, 1994, there is an attempt on his life. Osvaldo Durruti attempted to slash his throat and was unsuccessful.
Where was this at? Like at lunch?
In prison. Yeah, just...
what was it? Wait, I'm sorry. One more time. What was this guy's last name?
Durruti. Durruthy. Durruti, I guess.
I forgot. Yeah. I'm sorry. And I've got headphones on. I thought he said Durruti.
Durruti.
Yeah, that's what Dahmer said.
I'm like, Jesus, you want to talk about
I thought the same
terrible, ironic twist.
He's like, you gave me a bad name, damn it.
You're done, Dahmer. Tired of your shit.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
My name used to be good. But they actually, believe it or not,
that's hilarious.
Where that happened was in the chapel at church. So they were in church, sitting in church when the guy did it. He took like a toothbrush with a razor blade attached and went at him. So
Shiv, what a shiv?
Shiv, maybe.
Man.
So the writing was on the wall.
When you're scared of going to church, it's a bad place to be.
Yeah, I mean, you're not safe there, but you knew it was coming.
Not in the prison. Nope.
No. So November 28th, 1994. So this would be the day that Dahmer finally would die. Him and two other inmates, they were in there cleaning up the gym like they show in the show. There was another guy, another guy, Jesse Anderson. He was an inmate, and Christopher Scarver. So they were in the prison gym there in the shower area cleaning up, and they were left unattended for like about 20-minute period. And that's when, he made his move. He killed both of them. The Scarver guy killed Jesse Anderson and Jeff Dahmer. I think he went after Anderson first.
What did Anderson do?
He was in there for murder too. Okay. I think it was actually a murder that he tried to pin on a black guy or two black guys or something like that, like that he committed. I don't know if it was like his wife.
The guy that killed him knew the story behind it,
yeah,
so he targeted him.
Now this guy, Christopher Scarver, who murdered them both in prison here, I think he was a schizophrenic and he had like mental issues. He thought he was doing like God's work and one of them deals. And he said that when he attacked Jeff and beat him, like he didn't like yell or scream or even really fight back.
He was ready for it.
Yeah, he was just kind of like, I knew what's coming to me. And
what? So just I just for the listeners' sake, where were they cleaning up at? It
was like the prison gym, like they showed in the show. Yeah.
Think about this whole circle of life here.
Mm-hmm.
Dahmer's first victim, Steve, murdered him.
Barbell.
With a barbell, weights, whatever.
Dumbbell.
Boom.
Or dumbbell.
After 17 victims, Dahmer gets murdered with the
a
barbell.
Dumbbell. Yeah, back
in the gym.
Full circle. Yeah, he basically murders him and beat him bad. Now he was not dead at that time, and then they transferred him to the hospital. He died with I think within an hour or so after that. But
probably like his brain was swelled up and
so Scarver was already in there. Swole.
From the gym.
Scarver was already in there he was doing a life sentence already for a murder that he did in 1990. So it wasn't adding anything on to his time. He's in there for life no matter what.
Well, think about this. Dahmer's like, fuck you, man. I got you beat. I got 16, 17 life sentences.
Yeah, exactly. But in his mind, he was doing it, like I said. He thought he was doing the God's work like that. So
it's the way the Lord would have wanted it.
When his mother found out about the death to the media, she said, now is everybody happy now that he's bludgeoned to death? Basically, So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. He pretty much died in prison. Like Zapp said, the same way that he started all this, the same way it ended. I mean, there's so much murder and death and all this. It's just crazy. I mean, all that stuff that happened in the apartment. In the aftermath of all this, obviously, like we talked about, they knocked down the apartment
Wall.
complex.
Oh.
It's gone. And there were talks of them putting
The kids' playground, like a little
playground there, or some kind of memorial or something for
to
the
the victims.
victims or something like
That's
that.
got to be a bad idea.
Yeah.
So the less is more.
Mhm.
Don't put a memorial there.
Right.
Don't do anything like that, because that's just going to draw people. The more nondescript, the more simple and plain and nothing, people will ultimately just forget about it, or just pass by it nonchalantly, or not even know that
20 years later it's forgotten.
You just want to,
But you have something there, like kids are going there on Halloween trying to do seances and shit.
Well, that was the thing I saw. Like I saw somebody put it was like a picture of somebody dressed as Dahmer for Halloween.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be popular this
It's
year.
going to be a very popular costume.
It was popular at the, you're saying like right now in 2022, or at the time it was popular?
No, even right now. I'm just
No,
saying
right now with all this stuff going on,
Thanks
his
to
name
Netflix,
everywhere.
whatever, right.
Yeah.
I think back then, I mean, it was like in pop culture, like people were talking about it. But I think with this show, it's the biggest thing on Netflix. And here we are doing a podcast talking about it in the same way. But
To be clear, referring to it, this is not a review of the Netflix
no,
10-part series.
It's not. It just kind of, because of that show coming out.
It's very similar to what happened that we're talking about.
Same dude.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's the same guy. But that show basically put it on, like, back on the map. I mean, story's been out for how long, and now people are just finding out. You know, a lot of people, like we were talking about on the first episode, all the gory details. I kind of knew most of it, but I didn't know all of it. And back then, you just didn't have the internet. You didn't have that stuff that it would travel. You just knew there was a cannibal. This guy killed people, and didn't really know all the details like that.
It's funny, we talk about this. I had all but, not, again, no disrespect to, any of the tragedy that happened with this, but not for nothing, I all but forgot about Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, I did. I'm sorry. I went on and lived my life, but again, thanks to them internets, I've heard of a lot more stuff since then. So,
Right.
You know what's weird is like the OJ.
I didn't think of it. I didn't
the
think of
OJ
it until it
trial,
was
like
recently
people,
brought up.
people still talk about that today. You don't really hear Dahmer until this whole thing. Like for people that are into the true crime things,
Right.
like you hear like Dahmer, Gacy, Bundy,
Mm-hmm.
the bigger ones,
The bigger
but,
names.
Yeah, but
for like the majority of people, it was not really on their radar. And this show and everything brought it back in everybody's radar.
Yeah.
But it is, I mean, if anything out of all this, and he even said, and he even felt that way, or said that he felt that way, is that hopefully his story and everything will help somebody. Maybe there's a kid out there, or somebody, a young person, or somebody even not even young, but somebody is having these thoughts or these compulsions to get help and to get, the help that you need. You just wonder. And I talked about, that's what I wanted to talk about. In the very first episode, I said, remind me when we get around to the end of this if we talked about Jeffrey Dahmer in today's time, if it maybe could have been different.
Yeah.
So
he would have got busted on the first one.
Well, my thought is that his whole thing was having somebody that would not leave. Now, I don't mean this as a joke or anything like that, but those sex dolls, like those real dolls that just kind of lay there and they look real and they're supposed to, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, so like from the mannequin part, like if
Right.
he could have just had one of those
if he could
real
have had
dolls.
something that was like almost so real and lifelike, could have it fed his.
I mean, like he would have led a normal life, like working at the chocolate factory, coming home.
Would you just wonder, would have it fed or like kind of like kept him?
I think he was too
Under
much of
control.
a monster.
What happened? What would have happened if his grandmother hadn't discovered that mannequin and thrown it away?
Mhm.
What if he would have just been allowed to keep that mannequin, do his thing with the mannequin, and let it go?
Well, I don't know that. I know he did say that the mannequin, it was okay, but it wasn't,
Just wasn't enough.
Wasn't enough.
Wasn't
to
what he
him.
was looking for.
But those dolls, or think about like
This is not the mannequin you're looking for.
I mean,
These
I
are
don't-
not the mannequins
I
you're
don't.
looking for.
Maybe in 50 years, when the movie like Ex Machina or whatever that is, and that's
El
like real,
Machina.
or Westworld, if that's like legit, would that?
That's actually a great movie. Did you see that?
It is.
Absolutely.
It's
That's
a
a
great
good
movie.
movie.
Like, would something like that curb this guy's appetite, or somebody like that has that appetite? Because he just wanted them not to leave. He basically wanted a sex slave, which is not,
Definitely an
Definitely not.
appetite for destruction.
But just made me think about it. Like, could have today's, like you said, definitely with today's technology and tracking people and all that, you would hope that 18 people aren't going to go missing. 17 people, I'm sorry.
not happen today.
And not. It could.
Because
No.
each of those people, not all, but I am sure many of those people in today's day and age would have their Facebook friends, their TikToks, their
Oh,
you
gosh,
name
yes.
it, their Instagrams, their
Mm.
whatever kind of pages. that they would have their followers or their people with whom they're
But not to
interacting
mention-
with constantly. So the other people on the other end are going to say, where are you at? Where are you at? Where are you at? I'm not seeing your post. Where are you at? And so eventually, maybe authorities would be contacted.
Or just the cameras on the streets, the cameras at the clubs. There's so much technology.
Well, I just saw they got a serial killer the other day in California. You see that?
No.
He was going out shooting people, and from video surveillance, he was out on the prowl, and they got him. I don't know how many people. I didn't get into the details, but I saw the thing pop up: serial killer in California, captured, and so
they're still out there.
they're still. I mean, to think that there's none that serial killers do not, that they just went away. It's not.
Well, no, as we learned in episode 1 from the McDahmer triangle, is if you're, let me see, playing with fire, kicking animals, and pissing the bed, there's the possibility that you could become a serial killer. So parents, look out for your kid.
Watch out for that stuff. No, but if anything out of all this, like this,
that was facetious, by the way. That was absolutely facetious, just so everybody knows.
No, but you should.
Do you know where your children are?
Yeah, precisely.
You should be aware.
Oh, good old Maddie.
But at any rate, I mean, this was a very deep one to do.
Matt needs a band.
He does. All them lyrics and stuff. But it's definitely a somber one. The show was tough to watch at points, but I did think it was good. And it is like a tough one to cover. There's so much info here, but I think we did all right with it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You guys got anything else in closing?
As Whitney would say, from all this, I wish you love.
Wow. And crack rocks. I will take this opportunity to thank Dave one more time for handling heroically again this Herculean task. This last episode, this was a lot. So biggie ups to me, man.
Thank you.
Dave.
Yeah, it might even be broken into 2. This might be 2 episodes. I'm not sure.
I don't know. I'll probably put it out as one just to be done with this one.
It's just like an hour and 30 minutes of pure Dahmer action.
Whatever it edit, we edited it down to. It's just a hot thing right now. I think next week will be the Dexter killer. I probably saw some promos for that. And then after that, we'll see where we go with it. But we hope you guys are enjoying it. Don't forget to find us on Facebook and Instagram at Old Dirty Basement and on TikTok at Old Dirty Basement Podcast. Thanks to our boy Zap. Thanks to Matt. You guys got anything else?
Man, after that, I got nothing. I'm exhausted.
Bedtime.
I'm going to go fall asleep on this couch in the basement, man. Maybe I'll roll over some old Fritos.
Let's light a...
He's staying down here.
Let's get a fire down here to keep us warm.
Yeah. So, all right, well, we'll catch you where?
On the flip side.
If we don't see you sooner, we'll see you later.
Peace. Thanks for hanging out in the Old Dirty Basement. If you dig our theme music like we do, check out the Tsunami Experiment. Find them on Facebook. Their music is available streaming on Spotify and Apple, and where great music is available.
You can find us at Old Dirty Basement on Facebook and Instagram, and at Old Dirty Basement Podcast on TikTok.
Peace.
We Audi 5000.